This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. If you sign up to CuriosityStream with the link in the description, you can be the first to watch the next episode of the Dark Side of the Moon project when it drops next week on Nebula. The history of humankind is a history of conflict. The means of conflict may change, as may the justifications, but the conflict remains. On an individual level and on a societal level, we are always at war with one another. When it came time to approach this complicated topic on Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd did so with a leftover piano piece and a calm, meditative hand. The result was Us and Them, one of the most raw, most human moments on all of Dark Side of the Moon. A lot of that emotion is thanks to Richard Wright, who wrote the piano piece at the core of the song. Originally, that piece had no lyrical accompaniment. Instead, it was written as part of the score to Michelangelo Antonioni's film, Zabriskie Point. Shot throughout 1968 and 1969, Zabriskie Point was a piece of countercultural filmmaking that explored the radical youths of the hippie movement. Fittingly, Antonioni recruited psychedelic bands to score the movie, including Kaleidoscope, The Grateful Dead, and of course, Pink Floyd. So Wright wrote a piano piece that he dubbed the Violent Sequence. That piece reflects on a lot of Wright's personal influences, particularly in the realm of jazz. Unlike most of his bandmates, Wright was a student of jazz, and in particular, of Miles Davis. Wright was drawn to the way Davis's music moved slowly, drawing the emotion out of each and every note. The jazz influence comes through clearly when you see the chords that make up Us and Them. Rather than the straightforward chords of rock and roll, Wright built the song around strange, ambiguous chord centers. The result of all of this was a song that was calm, but dark, and stunningly beautiful. But it turned out that wasn't what Antonioni wanted his film to sound like. When he approached Pink Floyd, Antonioni was hoping for something more along the lines of "Careful with that axe, Eugene." In the end, Pink Floyd re-recorded that song for the film and put the other material they wrote on the shelf. Over the next few years, the Violent Sequence would make some appearances at live shows, but it wouldn't really develop much more until Pink Floyd began to work on the album that would become Dark Side of the Moon. That's when Roger Waters devised some lyrics that would work with Wright's austere piano. Like Wright's music, those lyrical passages are wide open and minimal. They're structured around three different kinds of conflict in human society: war, racism, and class struggle. Rogers explained as much to Louder Sound. The first verse is about going to war, how on the front line we don't get much chance to communicate with one another because someone else has decided that we shouldn't. The second verse is about civil liberties, racism, and color prejudice. The last verse is about passing a tramp in the street and not helping. By looking at conflict on a human level like this, Waters highlights the way that we're impacted by the broader systems around us. And by doing it with sparse words, he allows Wright's piano and Dick Perry's saxophone to breathe. Ordinary man. This was part of a concerted effort by Waters to simplify his lyrics. Gilmour explained this to Louder Sound. Roger tried, definitely in his lyrics, to make them simple, straightforward, and easy to understand, partly because people read things into other lyrics that weren't there. The first verse of Us and Them is the most straightforward. It's a look at war from the perspective of unwilling soldiers. God only knows it's not what we would choose to do. Waters posits that it's the higher-ups in society, the generals that sit far from the front, who control the soldiers' destinies and send them off to die. This latter point is underscored by a stunning choral arrangement. That arrangement is a careful balance of harmony between the members of Pink Floyd and the backup singers. Gilmour elaborated to ultimate classic rock. I did I don't know how many harmony vocals, then the girls on top. It's really great, really uplifting. You can move one element a fraction and the whole thing falls to pieces. The end result is something powerful and religious. It has a new dimension to the lyrics. Just as people devote their entire lives to religion, many people devote themselves to the perceived binaries in life. We coalesce into in-groups and form our identities around who we perceive to be like us and who we perceive to be like them. Of course, in the end, most of these things are completely arbitrary, and that's what Rogers writes about in the second verse.
And who knows which is which, and who is who.
In the back half of the second verse, Rogers reflects on the military once more, this time the way that propaganda is used to create divisions that encourage people to kill their fellow man.
Listen, son, said the man with the gun,
one of the things that makes Dark Side of the Moon thrive is the way Pink Floyd are able to look at things on a broader societal level, but then pull in close and explore how these concepts play out in our day-to-day life. They're able to do this through the use of Waters' interview snippets.
Short, sharp, shock, they don't do it again.
These snippets are conversational slices of life. They reflect on our own realities. The bridge for Us and Them uses a clip from an interview with one of Pink Floyd's roadies, Roger Manifold. That clip features Manifold talking about getting into a scuffle with a cab driver who insulted his long hair.
Dig it? I mean, he got off light because I could have given him a thrashing. I only hit him once.
Our interpersonal conflicts and scuffles are born out of the same place as our broader societal issues. They're born out of breaking people off into groups, designating one us and the other them. And what comes from this is unnecessary suffering and alienation. These feelings play out in Dick Perry's saxophone solo. It starts as a slow lament, but grows to something huge and profound, a heart-wrenching wail about the conflicts within our society. The final verse ties Us and Them back into the previous song, Money. It explores how greed drives class divide in society, and in the final moments of the song, Waters depicts the end result of modern alienation and division. The weight of modern society, which Pink Floyd have sung about the entire album, makes it hard for us to focus on the suffering of individual human beings around us. Modernity has brought us untold wonders, things that would seem magic to our ancestors only a few generations back. And yet, we're still alienated. We still find ourselves tied up in the same issues that have plagued humanity for its entire history. War, racism, class. Ultimately, this is the paradoxical reality in which we live. We have more than we ever could have asked for, but it's paid for with the price of other human lives, and it's paid for with the price of our own mental health. Us and Them pushes toward the final movement of Dark Side of the Moon. Having looked at all of the stresses and pressures that define the modern existence, Pink Floyd prepare to explore the cost of modernity in the album's final few songs. It's been a long journey, but we're finally approaching the end of the Dark Side of the Moon project. If you want to be the first to see those last two videos, the place to go is Nebula. I'll be dropping my episode on Any Color You Like there next Thursday, and on August 6th, the final episode will premiere on Nebula. So what is Nebula? Well, it's a platform created by and for creators like myself, a place for us to make content free from the constraints of YouTube, and a place for us to experiment with content we otherwise might not get to make. Like, well, the Dark Side of the Moon project. And Nebula has teamed up with the kind folks at CuriosityStream, the streaming service dedicated to professionally made documentary content. CuriosityStream has thousands of documentaries, including award-winning exclusives and originals. If you want a place to start, I can't recommend King, a filmed record, highly enough. In our current political moment, it's really important to educate ourselves about the past, and King is a stunning piece, documenting one of the most important chapters in American history. It uses real, on-the-ground footage to tell the story of Martin Luther King's civil rights crusade. Once you've seen that, there's plenty more to choose from, on topics ranging from science and history to nature and food. So head on over to the link in the description today. Not only will following that link get you 26% off the annual plan, but signing up to CuriosityStream also gets you free access to Nebula, where you can be the first to finish the Dark Side of the Moon project. Thank you guys so much for watching, and an extra thanks to all of you who have already signed up to Nebula and made this project possible.